Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Meher and these are the headlines. Azerbaijan says one serviceman was killed in an attack by Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. In a tweet, the Defense Ministry said an armed group attacked units of the Azeri army in Khojavend. It said all 6 members were killed and warned of firm measures against future incidents. In India, the protesting farmers have called for a nationwide protest on New Year's Day to demand the repeal of new laws. Meanwhile, Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi says the government should talk to farmers and take back the black laws. Farmers have been camping on Delhi borders against agricultural reforms for over a month now. Lebanon's HEZBOLLAH says it has the capacity to strike anywhere in Israel and occupied Palestinian territories. In an interview, leader Hassan Nasrallah said the group has twice as many precision-guided missiles now as it had a year ago. China has called on the United States to stop using Taiwan to meddle in its domestic affairs. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said this at a daily news briefing in Beijing. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump signed into law the Taiwan Assurance Act of 2020 to enhance Taipei's self-defense capabilities. South Africa has crossed 1 million cases of coronavirus days after a new strain linked to the UK was detected there. South Korea is also the latest state to report cases of the variant. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 55 lives and infected nearly 2,000 people overnight. The nationwide death toll has risen to 9,929. Globally, there are 1.7 million fatalities and 80 million cases. Pakistan were all out for 239 at the end of the third day of the first test against New Zealand at Bay Oval. New Zealand will begin the second innings with a 192-run lead tomorrow in Mount Maunganui. The second match is slated for the 3rd of January at Hagley Oval in Christchurch. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. We start off in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan says one serviceman was killed in an attack by Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. In a tweet, the Defense Ministry said an armed group attacked units of the Azeri army in Khojavend. It said all 6 members of the illegal Armenian armed group were killed in retaliatory measures. The Defense Ministry warned of firm measures if such incidents recur in the future. Meanwhile, Armenian authorities have denied the clashes between ethnic Armenian and Azeri forces spanning over 2 months. The conflict came to an end with a Russian-brokered ceasefire agreement. Moving on, Indian police have charged an army officer and 2 associates for planting weapons on 3 slain Kashmiri laborers. The officers made them look as though they were rebels in a staged gun battle in July. A police statement said Captain Bhupinder Singh has been charged with murder, conspiracy, and other offenses. He is now in military detention and the others are in police custody. The families of the victims say the 3 were only looking for work in Kashmir's apple orchards. In September, the Indian Army admitted its soldiers had exceeded powers under the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which accords impunity to soldiers in the killing of civilians. Also in India, the protesting farmers have called for a nationwide protest on New Year's Day to demand the repeal of new laws. Farm unions urge the public to support their struggle against contentious agricultural reforms. They also called for rallies in Patna and Thanjavur on December 29th and in Manipur and Hyderabad on December 30th. Meanwhile, Congress has decided to launch a dialogue program in Rajasthan to support the farmers. Leader Priyanka Gandhi said the government should talk to farmers and take back the black laws. More farmers from Maharashtra have joined the protest at Rajasthan-Haryana border, which has emerged as a new epicenter of the ongoing agitation. Farmers have been camping on Delhi borders for over a month now. And in Afghanistan, at least one security official was killed and 2 others wounded in a Taliban attack on Anardara district police headquarters. Local officials say the incident took place at night in Farah province. The Farah governor says Taliban detonated a car laden with explosives near the head office. He said security forces killed several fighters in the clearing operation. The Taliban have not commented on the attack yet. Meanwhile, the next round of talks between Kabul and the Taliban will be held in Qatar from next month. This comes despite President Ashraf Ghani's recent calls for them to be moved home. Moving on, Lebanon's Hezbollah says it can strike anywhere in Israel and occupied Palestinian territories. In an interview, leader Hassan Nasrallah said the group has twice as many precision-guided missiles now as it had a year ago. Nasrallah said Hezbollah warned it would retaliate when Israel threatened to target a facility in the eastern Bekaa region. He also said the last few weeks of the Trump administration were critical and called Trump angry and crazy. Nasrallah repeated vows that Iran and its allies will avenge the U.S. killing of Qasem Soleimani. He also promised to avenge Israel's killing of a Hezbollah fighter in Syria earlier this year. Now, China has called on the United States to stop using Taiwan to meddle in its domestic affairs. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump signed into law the Taiwan Assurance Act, which enhances Taipei's self-defense capacities. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian was speaking at a daily news briefing in Beijing. He said Beijing also rejects the recently approved legislation on Tibet, which calls for the establishment of an American consulate in Lhasa and the absolute right of Tibetans to choose a successor to the Dalai Lama. Commenting on Hong Kong, Zhao said U.S. remarks calling for the release of 12 fugitives disregards facts. Russian opposition activist Lyubov Sobol has been released from detention after interrogation. An ally of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, Sobol said her arrest was an act of political revenge for Navalny still being alive. Sobol said authorities want to punish all sane people who want to get justice for Navalny. She added that the government is afraid people will interrogate the poisoning case. Russia's investigative committee said on its website it has launched a criminal case against Sobol. It said she tried to gain entry to an old women's flat in Moscow by illegal methods. But her supporters say the apartment was linked to a secret agent involved in the plot to kill Navalny. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a $2.3 trillion COVID relief and spending package into law. The move has averted a partial government shutdown on Tuesday. In a statement, Trump said he asked Congress to reduce wasteful spending and increase paychecks to Americans. White House Deputy Press Secretary Judd Deere said a redlined version will be sent back to Congress, but the bill as signed will not necessarily be changed. Lawmakers now have breathing room to continue debating whether to revise the stimulus checks. The Democrat-led House is set to vote on the issue today. Republicans and Democrats have swiftly welcomed the president's decision to sign the bill into law. Now, South Africa has crossed 1 million cases of coronavirus days after a new strain linked to the UK was detected there. South Korea is also the latest state to report cases of the variant. Globally, there are 1.7 million fatalities and 80 million cases. More on the coronavirus pandemic in the following report.
The frightening surge of COVID-19 and inoculations against the virus are treating the world hand in hand at this stage of the pandemic. Brazil's Vice President Hamilton Mourão has tested positive as the country registered 344 new deaths. U.S. top infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci has warned that the holiday travel can push the country to a critical point in the pandemic, while Mexico continued its vaccination plan by focusing on doctors, nurses, and soldiers.
This is very important because we have to protect those who protect us. These people, especially those in the front line, are in contact with sick people. If they get sick, two things happen. One, they can transmit the disease not only to other patients but also to their families. Second, they would stop going to work.
A new faster-spreading variant of the virus has prompted more than 50 countries to impose travel restrictions on Britain. Saudi Arabia has extended a ban on entry to the kingdom by air, land and sea for another week. Meanwhile, France, Spain, Germany and Greece have started vaccinating elderly care home residents first. Meanwhile, Sydney is scaling back its New Year celebrations and has banned large gatherings that night amid an outbreak. South Korean officials say they will speed up efforts to launch a public coronavirus vaccination program. Elsewhere, local authorities in China are implementing strong epidemic prevention and control measures to curb the rebound and import of COVID-19 cases during the winter season.
Now in Pakistan, 55 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This pushes the country's death toll to 9,929. Health officials reported 1,974 new infections overnight. Meanwhile, there are more than 39,000 active cases in the country. The health ministry says out of 473,000 countrywide cases, more than 423,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, Pakistan International Airlines is resuming commercial flights to Saudi Arabia to bring back stranded Pakistanis. The year 2020 is set to become the deadliest in U.S. history. Preliminary estimates by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show the number of deaths may exceed 3.2 million. CDC's mortality statistics chief, Robert Anderson, said life expectancy in the U.S. can drop as much as 3 full years. Facing an acute surge in deaths, U.S. states are using and purchasing refrigerated trailers to store more bodies. In a statement, Los Angeles County Public Health Director Barbara Ferrer said a person dies every 10 minutes in the area from COVID. With patients flooding hospitals and ICUs across the U.S., medical staff have long been overwhelmed. In the U.S. state of Tennessee, Nashville police have named the suspect in the camper van blast on Christmas Day. The blast left 3 people injured and disrupted communication systems in Tennessee and 4 other states. Officials said DNA collected at the scene matched that of a 63-year-old Anthony Quinn Warner. They said Warner blew himself up in the explosion and appears to have acted alone. Public records show Warner lived in Antioch, southeast of Nashville, and his home was searched by FBI on Saturday. The FBI said there was no sign of more suspects and it was too early to suggest a motive.
Based on the evidence that we've gathered to this point, we've come to the conclusion that an individual named Anthony Warner is the bomber, that he was present when the bomb went off, and that he perished in the bombing. We base this conclusion on forensic evidence, including DNA evidence that you'll hear about, as well as evidence that was gathered at the scene of the bombing.
A Florida-based U.S. serviceman has been charged in the nighttime shooting that killed 3 people in Rockford, Illinois. Winnebago County State Attorney Jay Hanley said Duke Webb was indicted for 3 counts of murder. He said the 37-year-old serviceman was also charged with 3 counts of first-degree attempted murder. Duke Webb was taken into custody shortly after the incident as he tried to conceal his weapon. Rockford Police Chief Dan O'Shea said Webb was an active military man and investigators were in touch with the U.S. Army. O'Shea said the suspect had no known ties to the victims, adding that the shooting was a random act. And we'll be back with more news after a short break. Stay with us. We're back. The European Union has termed Pakistan a very safe place for foreign tourists and travelers. EU Ambassador Andrea Kaminara said Pakistan is the land of hospitality and natural beauty. In an interview, Kaminara said a huge tourism potential exists in the country, particularly in the stunning north. She said Pakistan is lucky to have 6 World Heritage Sites. She said culture is an important part of EU's strategic engagement plan with Pakistan. She hoped more tourists from around the world could see the beauty that this country has to offer. And preparations are underway in New York as workers begin installing a new design of the Times Square New Year's Ball. For a city struck early by COVID-19 and with a death toll near 25,000, many will welcome the chance to turn the page on 2020. This year's design is set to represent the gift of happiness. The event will be headlined by Gloria Gaynor, Jennifer Lopez, Billy Porter, and Jimmy Allen. There will be fewer than 100 people at the crossroads of the world to ring in 2021. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and other essential workers will be invited to enjoy the celebration in socially distanced pens, while everyone else watches from home. In Russia, thousands of lights have illuminated the capital, Moscow, ahead of New Year Eve celebrations. State media says 1,000 Christmas trees were lit and 4,000 installations set up for this holiday season. With endless decorations and lights lining its streets, Moscow transforms into a winter fairy tale during the holidays each year. This year, despite coronavirus restrictions, a huge crowd gathered to admire the lights. Around the capital's famous landmarks, including Red Square, the Kremlin, and the world-famous Bolshoi Theater, the famous gum department store has also been decked out with extravagant decorations both inside and out. The box office earnings of Wonder Woman 1984 have hit a pandemic high in a cinema and streaming showdown. The superhero franchise pulled in nearly $36.1 million at theaters worldwide over the Christmas holiday weekend.
The AT&T-owned studio Warner Brothers said around $16.7 million of the total came from U.S. and Canadian theaters. This ranks as the highest domestic box office opening since the coronavirus shuttered theaters in March. In a statement, HBO Max said the movie was also watched by millions at home in the U.S. via streaming. It said the total viewing hours on HBO Max tripled compared with a typical day. Warner Brothers has also confirmed plans for another movie in the franchise. It said the third movie will also be written and directed by Patty Jenkins and star Gal Gadot as a lasso-wielding warrior.
Archaeologists in Pompeii, the city buried in a volcanic eruption in 79 AD, have made an extraordinary find. They dug up a frescoed shop that served up the ancient equivalent of street food to Roman passersby. More about the discovery in this report.
Archaeologists have made yet another interesting discovery in the ancient city of Pompeii. Known as Thermopolium, Latin for hot drinks counter, the shop was discovered in the Archaeological Park's Regio 5 site. Traces of nearly 2,000-year-old food were found in some of the deep terracotta jars. It contained hot food, which the shopkeeper lowered into a counter with circular holes.
This is an extraordinary find. We are in the Thermopolium of Regio 5, where excavations began 2 years ago, when we found only one side of the counter, a very beautiful counter by the way, with a nymph riding a horse. Maybe this fresco was dedicated to a nearby fountain, because this Thermopolium was placed in front of a small square, one of the most beautiful squares of Pompeii.
The front of the counter was decorated with brightly colored frescoes. Some depict animals that were part of the ingredients in the food sold, such as a rooster and 2 ducks hanging upside down. Archaeologists also found a decorated bronze drinking bowl known as a patera. They also dug up ceramic jars used for cooking stews and soups, wine flasks, and an amphora and some bones.
Now we can start the analysis. The material inside the container to know their content, what type of food was solid, and what passers-by in Pompeii could buy, drink, food. A truly extraordinary evidence of the Mediterranean diet that we will know soon.
Pompeii was home to about 13,000 people when it was buried under ash, pumic pebbles, and dust. It endured the force of an eruption equivalent to many atomic bombs. About 2/3 of the 165-acre ancient town has been uncovered.
In Colombia, a restaurant is offering a juicy 24-karat gold-topped hamburger for a whopping $60, whereas the price of a regular Big Mac is $5. More about the gold burger in this report.
A gold burger was unheard of until a restaurant in Bogota introduced it. The owner of the Colombian Toro McCoy restaurant says he was inspired by restaurants in Turkey where they serve a similar burger.
The idea of the McCoy Gold was born from a trip made by the owner of Toro McCoy to Turkey. He ate the steak with gold leaf, so he decided to bring the idea here to Colombia. It is a unique idea because you don't have to travel to try an experience like this.
The hamburger is sandwiched with double beef patties, caramelized bacon, crispy onions, and double cheese between the brioche bread. Finally, the burger is topped with 5 pieces of 24K edible gold leaves that are imported from the US. Each sheet of gold is 0.0015 millimeters thick.
People who have come to eat it say it is worth it. But there are also people who say they prefer to buy clothes or shoes for the cost of the hamburger, but that's their point of view.
The owner of the restaurant hopes to bring new culinary experience to Colombian diners unable to travel due to the coronavirus pandemic.
On to business. With Britain and the European Union having clinched a deal, the UK is pursuing trade deals with the US, Australia, and other countries in the Indo-Pacific region. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said London will engage in trade deals with a huge growth market for the future. Trade Minister Liz Truss said Britain and Turkey will sign a deal that replicates the existing terms between Ankara and London. She said they expect to sign tariff-free trade agreements this week in the manufacturing, automotive, and steel industries. London has now signed trade agreements with 62 countries ahead of the end of the Brexit transition period on January 1st. The government has urged businesses to prepare for practical and procedural Brexit changes. And European stocks are trading higher after U.S. President Donald Trump signed a $900 billion coronavirus relief bill into law. Frankfurt's DAX is leading the gains, rising by nearly 1.5%. The Pan-European Stock 600 has edged up, adding 0.5%. The CAC 40 in Paris has also edged up. Italy's FTSE MIB has added more than 0.5%, while London's FTSE 100 has gained marginally. Earlier, most Asian bourses traded higher, except for Hong Kong's Hang Seng. Let's move on to sports. Pakistan were all out for 239 at the end of the third day of the first test against New Zealand at Bay Oval. New Zealand will begin the second innings with a 192-run lead tomorrow in Mount Maunganui. Fahim Ashraf remained the top scorer for the Greens with 91 runs. Kyle Jamieson was the pick of the bowlers for his 3 wickets for 35 runs. Earlier, New Zealand were bowled out for 431 with Kane Williamson top scoring with 129 runs. The second match is slated for the 3rd of January at Hagley Oval in Christchurch. In the English Premier League, West Bromwich Albion snatched a 1-1 draw against champions Liverpool at Anfield. A late header by Semi Ajayi cancelled out Sadio Mane's opener, stunning the Reds. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp said the draw with West Brom felt like a defeat. He said the players were angry at missing the opportunity to go 5 points clear in the league. Liverpool are frustrated as they are already missing defenders Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez due to long-term injuries. In another fixture, Wolverhampton Wanderers scored a late equalizer against Tottenham Hotspur and drew 1-1. Football star Cristiano Ronaldo has been named Player of the Century at the Globe Soccer Awards. The Portuguese beat longtime rival Argentine Lionel Messi to be crowned with the title. More in this report.
At a ceremony held in Dubai, the Juventus star forward picked up his award in person.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first ever Dubai Globe Soccer Awards Player of the Century is Cristiano Ronaldo.
The five-time Ballon d'Or winner said his success was not possible without a team, great coaches and clubs. In honor of his managerial career, Manchester City's manager Pep Guardiola was named Coach of the Century. Bayern Munich striker Robert Lewandowski won the race for Men's Player of the Year award. The German club's coach Hansi Flick was also rewarded as Coach of the Year. Real Madrid was named Club of the Century, with Bayern picking up the Team Award for 2020. Founded in 2010, the Globe Soccer Awards acknowledge excellence in football with an annual gala dinner and awards ceremony.
And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.